In to yet another Clippers Talk Live. I'm your host, Adam Oslin. Good to be with you guys as you start to matriculate into the live podcast here in the chat. Did I use that word right? Big Shot Bob Flom. As we do have Robert Flom in here. Joining me, the first guest ever on the YouTube side for Clippers Talk is back, now doing a live late night because he's on the East Coast in Philly. Big Shot Bob Flom, how are we doing?
I'm doing well. I think you used the word correctly, but also it's a Friday night, so my brain is kind of fried. I cannot really speak to that, but I think that was correct.
Yeah, you guys can let us know in the comments section afterwards.
It's fine. Roast me. It's okay.
No, I mean, I'm the one who said it, and I'm also still a little punch drunk from the last couple of nights and doing 4 shows yesterday. But it's all good. It's all for Clipper Nation. First, says Jay, sup, Clipper Nation. All right, Robert Flom and I may have gotten into something just about 2-3 weeks ago. I had a hot take. I have to own that. It may crash and burn, and I'm going to show it to everyone now. I know Robert Flom already knows what I'm talking about. This is what I do. I make us go live, and then I start things off with a heated debate and an awkward conversation with my guests, just so we can be, shout out Skip Bayless, just homage to him. What a great guy. All the work he did for ESPN. Just kidding. So glad he's done. This was the conversation with Big Shot Bob Flom here. I said on October 5th, I think at some point KPJ is getting that starting 2 spot seen enough. I think this was after the second preseason game in San Diego against the juggernaut that was the Brooklyn Nets with all their backups of 6'8" guys. Big Shot Bob Flom responds, "What?" You could have at least put an exclamation point. I think it deserved one. Then we got into it in the comments section below, and he expanded saying he's done nothing but take very difficult shots and was fortunate to get fouled on 2 of them. LOL. He's been miserable to watch. I said he can create for himself, play some defense. I think that's what Coach Lou is looking for. Big Shot said he's a horrible defender, in my opinion. I said he has real utility and ability there when he cares because of his size. Big Shot Bob Flop said, I just strongly disagree. I said, I'm the receipt master, basically. So we can go from there. The floor is yours, my friend. You can elaborate and even articulate a little bit further your point about Kevin Porter Jr. and how I'm a big dummy for saying that.
So I'll just be upfront and say, first of all, we can just forget the off the court stuff right away, which is always my caveat with Kevin Porter Jr. Just try to make this just about the pure on-court basketball stuff with him.
Outside of the fact that a suspension could come at any time, and Miles Bridges got 30 games, so who knows? And that would completely set everything back and make this all maybe a moot point. Who knows?
Yeah. So my big, I guess, issue with your take is that even if you are a fan of what Kevin Porter Jr. does on the court, and I am not, clearly, his best skills are things that do not mesh well with James Harden, who feasibly is going to be the Clippers' best player and lead offensive player for most of the year, especially in games when Kawhi Leonard does not play. This is less about, Porter Jr. looking good or not good, and more just that he's a player who likes to cook. He is a ball don't stop hero. He likes to have the ball in his hands and take difficult jumpers. And he's good at them. Like, he's a good contested shot maker. Like, that is a skill. That is a skill that I think the Clippers can use. It is not a skill that makes much sense next to James Harden. Norm Powell, I don't love his fit with James Harden on the defensive end.
We'll get into that.
But the offensive fit is very clear, which is that Norm is a fantastic catch and shoot 3-point shooter. He's a guy who's very comfortable playing off ball. And he's a guy who, when you give him an advantage, which James Harden can create, is very good at just putting his head down and getting to the rim or drawing fouls. The offensive fit is very clear. Kevin Porter Jr., even if you like his game on offense, which, again, to some extent is just aesthetic, bias, and I just really don't like that style of player, you can quibble about effectiveness. I just don't think that's a good fit with Harden. And, if the Clippers are high on him and think he can help them this year, the ideal role for him would actually be staggered with James Harden or staggered against James Harden, I guess I should say. So he gets the minutes, Harden is off the floor. He can cook up his nonsense. It'll help the Clippers because they have so few offensive options that, like, even if he's mostly taking difficult shots and hitting them at a low-ish rate, it might still be better than any offense they could generate without him. So, yeah, to me, like, I do understand why people like his game, even though I don't. I just don't think he makes any sense as a starter next to Harden. And that's not even going into the defense. He might theoretically be better than Norm Powell, but I have yet to see him play consistently good defense in the NBA. So, yeah, I don't know.
That's fair. I think you can make the argument Norman Powell hasn't played consistently good defense in years in the NBA.
Yes.
But well put, as I thought it would be. You fell right into my trap. All right, Big Shot, I am playing the long game here. You see, what people don't know about that hot take is it's not that hot because I didn't put a timeline on it. It could be Kevin Porter Jr. way late in the season. It could be nice James Harden is out. It could be next season since he's on a 2-year contract. Because I don't necessarily disagree with anything you said about staggering those two because they have similar skill sets. And KPJ has been called a very poor man's James Harden with the way he plays basketball in some ways. He's a lefty. Maybe that makes it easier for some people. But I will say this. I will defend the defense because it's been pretty good in the preseason from him, as it has been from pretty much every Clipper that has been out there. They've been giving the effort at least. And he is a bigger body that projects to be a better defender and a more switchable defender than Norman Powell that guys can't pick on. And I'll add this little sprinkle on top. You say he doesn't work because of his offensive style, but did you know this? He shot 48% on catch and shoot threes in the 21-22 season and 44% the very next season, the last season in the NBA. Does that change anything for you?
No, I mean, Norm Powell takes more of them, is better at taking them.
Okay.
And yeah, like, I mean, I think even if you do think he's a good off-ball player, like the rest of his skill set still makes more sense propping up the bench unit than starting next to James Harden. Like, even if you're like Kevin Porter Jr. is great, like, he's awesome. I love what he brings on offense. He just makes much more sense playing off the bench. Because if you think he's that good, he makes, like, have him cook in the 16 minutes James Harden doesn't play. You can still play them alongside each other if you really want to. But like, I just think, like, based on what we know about how the Clippers want to use him and what we've seen in preseason, they do want him to be the lead ball handler of the bench unit. And that does theoretically make sense. I can question its efficacy, but like the theoretical idea is there. He can shoot. Like, I don't really think that's an issue. The rest of his skill set it's much better suited to playing not with James Harden.
Points taken. It's a real good argument that I can't necessarily defend, and I agree. Like, I do think it makes the most sense him coming off the bench. I still think, though, at some point, in various different ways, depending on context, he's going to end up in the starting lineup. But that's not necessarily what you were pushing back against, because I'm guessing if I tell you James Harden is out and KPJ is with the starters, that wouldn't be crazy to you, right?
No, I mean, no, I don't. It's possible that, Ty Lue and a lot of coaches like keeping guys in similar configurations. In that instance, it might be kind of like what we saw yesterday where Bones actually gets the starting nod and they keep Kevin Porter Jr. with the bench. But yeah, I mean, in games where Harden doesn't play, I think it's totally feasible that Porter Jr. is the starter.
So basically, I'm kind of being a bitch about it and just
it's a technicality.
I put out very vague he's going to be in the starting lineup with no parameters.
Yeah, I mean, if the question was, will he start a game this year for the Clippers? Yeah, the answer is yes, he probably will.
Okay, yeah. That's fair. So we've come to an understanding there. You mentioned Bones Highland, and this is related to KPJ. I put out a tweet last night. I think you saw this as well. Maybe liked it. Who knows? A lot of people did. But I said, I wonder if part of the reason Bones Highland started last night after getting a DNP last game wasn't just because KPJ was out with the dental work going on. I mean, that's part of it. But James Harden's out too. I think that's their backup plan for backup point guard should KPJ get suspended a significant amount of time. And maybe that's the reason Bones Highland has not been moved to this point. We are both Bones Highland fans. What do you think about that, Big Shot?
I do agree with that, and I mentioned that. It actually it's very funny because in my preview for the game yesterday, I had like a whole like note about like how Bones didn't play the game before and like what's going on, like is he just not going to play, whatever. And then he ended up starting and playing a lot of minutes. I do think that's very reasonable. To me, I mean, I know Tyloo wants to play a 10-man rotation, and because of that, like one of those guys will be in the rotation. And if Porter Jr. is not playing because of the suspension, then yeah, I think Bones is the very natural replacement for him because of how good Chris Dunn is on defense. You can pair them together. I- yeah, I mean, I think that's why they did it. And I think that I'd be kind of surprised if Porter Jr. wasn't suspended at all. I don't know. I have zero
Based on
sources.
precedent.
Yeah, I have zero sources in the NBA league office, but it would be pretty stunning if he was not suspended for at least some amount of games. How many? I don't know. And yeah, I mean, if Tyloo really wants to keep a 10-man rotation, the most logical next guy up would be Bones Highland. Now this could be an opportunity if you want to put Jordan Miller in there, who I know you wanted to talk about. That would be a big role for him. He would effectively be the guy on the second unit. I don't think they want to put him into that much of a role on offense. But
like being the backup point guard of the second unit.
I mean, Chris Dunn is really the point guard in that alignment, which I think is fine. But yeah, he would be the main scorer, I guess.
Right.
And that's still a lot of pressure from him. So yeah, that's really the only reason that they haven't traded Bones, outside of the fact that I just don't think he has much value. But yeah, I mean, I'm guessing it's because they think a Porter Jr. suspension is coming and he's just going to be a viable backup. And hey, maybe he plays well enough to juice his trade value, and the Clippers can flip him for something. So
Robert Flom from 213 Hoops, the Lob, the Jam, the podcast is the show, is our guest here on a Clippers Talk live on Clippers Talk. Redundant. Yeah, I'm still in a whirlwind from the last couple of nights. I just feel like I've done so many shows. I want to talk a little bit more about Bones and your feelings on him. Has anything changed over the past year since he's gotten less of an opportunity? Even though he's had some showings, 37 points, he had the game against Chicago, and the first 4 games of last season, he was averaging, I think, 15 or 16 points per game before they brought in James Harden and bumped Russell Westbrook to the backup point guard spot, and was shooting 49% from the floor and 46% from 3 in those first 4 games. It's only 4. There were some bad teams in there too. Orlando was one of them, though. But Bones looked to me like he was ready for that breakout season, and then it was kind of taken away from him. Now, there's a lot of responsibility on him for not taking advantage of whatever minutes he did get along the way after that, where it looked like he was dogging it and pounding at times in inconsequential time out there. That's totally on Bones Highland. But when he has been given the green light, just like last night, all of a sudden, hey, he's playing some defense. He's getting deflections. He's setting the table. He looks like a competent backup point guard, more than just competent. He looks like a guy with a ton of potential in the league. Has that opinion changed for you? Because I know at least at one point you felt this way even before I did about Bones coming out of college, you were high on him.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and this is the difficulty of players who are not top lottery picks, is it's so situation dependent and context dependent, and those guys do not get as many chances. And to some extent, time does matter. Like, it has been a year and a half of kind of wasted development for Bones Highland. Like, I know he's been practicing, he's gotten some game reps, but as you said, he has not been really a consistent part of the rotation for more than like a few games since, basically since he was traded from the Nuggets. I know that first season with the Clippers, he kind of was in the rotation, but also they got Eric Gordon, who's kind of the backup point guard and not Bones. So it was a weird situation. That whole season was just a complete mess. And that time is gone, and like it can't be made up. My biggest issue with the Clippers, and Bones is I totally agree on the potential. Like I do think his floor is low, right? He just might not be a good NBA player. The problem is we don't really know. because he hasn't actually played consistent minutes for the Clippers. And I think the upside is undoubtedly higher than basically any other player on the Clippers under the age of 27. I don't think it's really even that close as much as I really like Jordan Miller. Um, you know, the combination of his shooting and his speed, and like even though his decision making is a weakness, he can make good passes. Like in that Chicago game, it was like 9 assists. He is a good passer. Like he can run basic offense. And that combination is just really tantalizing. Like, yes, the defense is going to be an issue. Yes, the decision making with him is probably always going to be a bit of a problem. But like the raw talent is there for him to be very good. And that's like, to me, for a team that's been as starved of upside and young talent as the Clippers have been, not giving him a real chance is frankly inexcusable. And part of the reason why the Russ thing was just such a disaster for me. Even though, as I've said many times, Russ was better than I thought he would be. I just like going with a guy that old when you need some sort of like shot in the arm and some juice and upside was just a poor decision, and one that I don't think the Clippers front office had much of a choice in, but a poor decision nonetheless. So I do still believe in Bones, but like you just can't be as high on him as you were a year and a half ago because he's no longer, what was he, like 21, 22? Now he's like 24, and that does matter in the NBA.
Yeah. And there's another guy who's 24 that's turning 25 in January, in Jordan Miller, who you compared to Bones Highland there. And you believe Bones has more higher upside even than Jordan Miller, which I think is a pretty strong take. I know he's gotten more run in the NBA, and I think it's fair in some ways. He has won playoff games. Bones Highland had a big playoff game for Denver. Okay, he lost the one technically in game 3. But the Clippers never should have lost that game because there was a take foul against the Phoenix Suns in 2023 where Devin Booker actually raised his hand and they still didn't call it, and it was a turnover by Russ. Bones was, I think, at 20-something points in that game. So he's popped in real NBA minutes. We don't know about Jordan Miller in that area yet. But what we do know, Big Shot, and I've been pounding the table today. I don't know why. I woke up feeling dangerous. I woke up feeling
watch too many highlights, just playing on a reel when you're going to sleep.
Probably in slow-mo, like 90s Jordan stuff, like just I woke up, I don't know, I had a burr in my saddle or something, and I felt like I needed to scream from the rooftops that Jordan Miller has to get run this season. And for the same reasons you're bringing up with Bones Highland and how it was inexcusable to not get him run when you need a guy like that, well, it's even more inexcusable in a season like this where you're not a contender. We don't believe. Kawhi's not even playing right now. We'll get to that in a little bit too. To not play young guys, especially one who is not even that young and has cleared every hurdle thrown in front of him. G League, dominated. Summer League, dominated. Preseason, maybe not dominated, but made the most of all his minutes. He was very damn good and looked like, and the thing I keep saying, or the phrase I keep saying for Jordan Miller is, it's too easy for him. So challenge him and test him and see where the ceiling is, because we have no idea right now. But everything that they have tried to I don't know, push him with has not worked, which is a good thing. He's passing all the tests with flying colors, and it's a year that could be a transitional one. How can you not play this guy?
Yeah. I don't, it's hard to follow that because I agree with you. I mean, like the issue is he plays the position where the Clippers are deepest. He's a 2-3. The Clippers have a million 2s and 3s on their roster. It's the one position where they're really stacked. I mean, that's the thing for me is like, I mentioned this earlier, like if Kevin Porter Jr. is suspended, like I like Bones, like could you just throw Jordan Miller into there instead and just say like, Chris Dunn will kind of run the offense, quote unquote, and bring the ball up the court and be the nominal point guard. You're going to get the ball. It would be Chris Dunn, Jordan Miller, Amir Coffey, Nick Batum, and Mo Bamba, Kai Jones. That's not a good second unit. But like, hey, just throw Jordan Miller, off the deep end and be like, hey, can you create offense or be like the lead guy for this unit? There's some shooting around him. He technically would not have to be the ball handler. Like Chris Dunn would be like the guy who's just bringing the ball up the court. I'd be interested in that. Like, as you said, like he looks really comfortable as a scorer. It's really surprising, honestly, having seen him in college where he was a guy who was more of like a do the little things. And like he did average 15 points a game in like a big college conference, but like that's very different than scoring 22 in the G League or, averaging, whatever it was, like 27 in Summer League. Like his ability to get downhill and finish, like the way his footwork, even though the handle is not like a Kyrie, like point guard, like take juke guys off, like he doesn't turn the ball over much, at least off his handle. Sometimes passing can be an adventure. But like,
He
yeah,
went
I mean,
behind his back or through his legs for the and one he had going to his
yeah,
left last night.
yeah. I mean, it's pretty remarkable how he's developed in the past year. And like the Clippers do need to play him because most likely he's just kind of like a rotation wing in the NBA. But like the way he's scoring and how he's developing, like you just never know. Like, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to become Jimmy Butler, but there are guys who come into the NBA who are older, who develop late, who just keep improving, and like he could be one of those guys. And like he seems to have the right attitude. The shot and his ability to do that Nick Batum quick release three is, it's crazy that he's been able to do that after not being, frankly, a very good shooter in college. Yeah, I mean, I think Amir Coffey is probably a better NBA player today, but like we also know who Amir Coffey is,
Right?
and like he's a fan favorite. He's been around for 5 years. The coaching staff is very comfortable with him. Like I would love if they continued to keep Amir Coffey on the team and played him, but
Well,
like,
if you were going to win this season and competing and in the inner circle of contenders, it
correct,
makes more sense to go with the finished product or the guy that's
correct,
closer to that who in Amir Coffey. But
yes.
that's not the situation where they're in.
No, and they need upside. Like, I think Clippers fans are higher on this team, like most fans are, than bloggers and pundits and media people. But the fact is, as we all know, the Clippers have not no draft picks. They do not control their draft for years. They have very few young players on their roster. And like they need to make as much of them as possible. And like you said, I mean, Jordan Miller's about to turn 25. Like they need to find out sooner than later, is this guy a real NBA player? I think he is. It sure seems like he is. But the question then is, how good is he? And we really have no idea because he just hasn't played in the NBA. So I'm in 100% agreement with you, whether it's, maybe trading Amir Coffey or, shoving some other guy out of the rotation. Like I think they have to try to get him, I don't know, like 500 minutes this year at the very least, hopefully more. But like I think they have to play him. He's too good, and they need any kind of glean of upside that they can.
Last night, he wasn't doing this against backups from Brooklyn. He was doing it against Keegan Murray. The Kings were playing everyone but De'Aaron Fox, and the Clippers were making him look like a total mess out there, and Jordan Miller was still getting to his spots and going downhill. That ability to finish in traffic like that and to play through fouls and still getting your shot to go and draw fouls, that's rare. That's something. I think he has more upside than Bones just because of his size, and I know we've seen less. But because of his size and his rebounding, also, I noticed in Summer League, he follows his shot so well. He gets rebounds among the trees. He has decent hops. I don't know. Does he need, in your opinion, to have the three-pointers fall for him to continually get run, or is his downhill attack so special it almost doesn't matter?
I mean, if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said, and I said when they drafted him, that he had to be able to make threes if he was going to have an NBA career. That might no longer be the case. Like his slashing and downhill driving might be good enough that he can have a career if the shot isn't falling. But yeah, I mean, if he's going to be a real player, like if the defense is as good as we've seen in flashes, he can contribute as a rebounder, the ability to score in transition, kind of be a secondary ball handler, like the shooting, if he can do all that and you add in the shooting, that's like a potential starting level player. Like he's almost certainly not going to be like a star guy, but like if all of that stuff is the case, and he's a pretty solid 3-point shooter on good volume, that is the guy who could start in the NBA theoretically. So I think like for him to really be like that caliber, he probably needs to make threes. But like I think at this point he's good enough at other stuff that he could have like a real NBA career even without that.
I can't overstate how much I think they need to find a way, and I know this means tough decisions have to be made, either a consolidation trade or telling a guy who's more proven that, hey, sorry, this is a season where we got to give this guy a look. Kobe Brown I'll give the Clippers credit last season for giving Kobe Brown that time, that 10-game look. That was something they weren't doing in past years, so it seems like they are emphasizing that obviously we have to find younger guys. I mean, the late, great Jerry West now would say, the phrase was, the draft is the lifeblood of your franchise. And that's never been more true than now because of the new CBA. If you don't draft and you can't know if these guys, if you're even hitting on them, if you don't play them, but if you don't draft well enough nowadays, you can't just go out and buy a team anymore. Like that's very rare.
Yeah, I mean, and it's partially why the Clippers' poor drafting is really the unsung disasters, maybe a stretch, but it's really the under the radar reason for why the 2-on-3 era did not work is because they missed on 3 consecutive drafts of in picks where like you can theoretically get decent players, and they did not get any from 2020, 21, 2019. They did get Terrence, but missed on Fiondu Kabengele. I've relitigated this a million times on the Law of the Jam, but like, yeah, I mean, the draft is very important, and the Clippers, as they get older, and the fact that they do not have many future picks coming in, for the guys they already have, they need to see what they have with them, because there's, like you said, you can't just go out and buy a team anymore. Like Steve Ballmer can no longer just pay however much money to build the best team. That's just not how the new CBA is going to work. So the draft does matter, and it's why, like, some of these trades, like, maybe they do flip, even though they just signed him. Maybe they just trade Derrick Jones Jr. at the deadline to a contending team for 3 second-round picks or something. I don't think they'd get a first for him. Maybe like a really late or protected first. You're definitely not getting a first from your coffee, but you could probably get a second-round pick or 2 from a good team. Like the Knicks could absolutely use one of those 2 guys with how thin their bench is. So like that could be part of clearing the room for Jordan Miller. It doesn't even need to be a big consolidation trade. It just be individual trades almost to return assets and young players. Because, and we can talk about it, like this team is just not going to be, and they acknowledge this. The whole thing with the Paul George leaving is they knew they weren't good enough. It's not like a surprise. It's not, knocking the team. They know this. So like I think moving some of these veterans for picks and younger players is hopefully going to be something that does end up happening this year.
Ex-Mongo Project wants to ask Big Shot Bob Flom, would you trade someone like Norm if that's the path to have Miller in the rotation?
It would depend what for, but sure. I mean,
Yeah.
Norm Powell is a good NBA player. He's a guy who made a ton of sense on the 2-on-3 era team. But again, like in this team in transition, he makes sense in the starting lineup, as we discussed at the very beginning. Like his offensive skills are not in question. But like
he's the quickest path to making up for the production loss from Paul George, right?
Correct. But yeah, I mean, if they could get real positive value for trading Norm Powell at the deadline, they should absolutely do it. Because unless there's something shocking happens this year, like they are going to be maybe in the play-in mix, and like they need to start thinking about the future. So I think certainly they could trade Norm. His contract is like it's getting smaller. It's only now 2 years left. And in the new CBA, it's as the salary cap goes up, like it's less tough to trade that, but it might still be a little tough to move. But yeah, I could certainly see them moving Norm Powell.
Let me play some audio for you from earlier today from Coach Lou. This is from Joey Lynn from SI Now. regarding Jordan Miller and his role?
Jordan said last night that he wants to prove that he's not a G League player, that he's an NBA player. Do you feel like he's done that already?
Yes, he has. I mean, he's definitely matured a lot. His game has matured. He's done a great job, like I said, just putting in the work every single day. Going down to the G League, I think last year was really good for him. I know as a young player, you don't like that, but I think Paul here did a really good job with just, working with him, get him developed to be what he is today. And, got to give Jordan credit. He's done a good job putting that work in.
I know you got a lot of guys who can play, but do you see a pathway to rotation minutes for him to start the season?
We'll see. Still trying to figure that part out. I think, if I put him in the game, I do have confidence and trust in him. That he can play and he can get things done. So we'll see going forward.
Does that leave you more or less encouraged that they're going to get him involved this season?
Probably neither. I think the Clippers coaching staff does legitimately like him, but as you said, it's very delicate when you have veterans ahead of him. It's a little different than like, say, previous years when you have like much bigger name veterans. Like it's a little different, like moving Amir Coffey out of the way compared to Russell Westbrook. But
they have traded Amir before.
Yeah, it's a little bit different to be like, Amir, like we have to play Jordan Miller or Chris Dunn, even if like maybe they go with like a Kevin Porter Jr. and Jordan Miller backcourt. So like I think these are guys that they could theoretically move out of the way, but I wouldn't read too much into it. We all know Ty Lue is pretty cagey in his press conferences.
I think that's interesting regarding Chris Dunn and Nico, because those are two vets that how they're going to play. In fact, Coach Lue said last night post-game he thinks Chris Dunn has a lot of similarities to Nico Batum. The way he plays, it's not about the box score, but he can affect the plus minus with just being a net positive out there by doing the little things each and every night. But because you know what you're getting, and because I don't want to say one shot hot, but they stay ready, just add water type of guys, and they're vets, maybe you could sit them for some time. Hey, you're out, once this week. Chris Dunn's going to take a game off once this week. And that's how we get Jordan Miller a little bit of play.
It's possible. I mean, I think certainly that's much easier with Nick Batum, who is very secure in his NBA career and what he's accomplished as, at this point, one of the oldest and like most, minutes heavy. Like he's been in the NBA for a very long time. I think that's somebody who, like, even just to give him rest, like it makes sense to do some of that. So Chris Dunn's a little bit different. Like, I know he did just get a contract from the Clippers. He's not like young, but I think that might be a little bit tougher. Also, just personality wise, he seems like the kind of guy who will want to play every night. Not to say Nick Batum doesn't either. I just think that might be an easier conversation. But yeah, I mean, I think certainly the idea of like trying to rest some of these veterans and give the younger guys games where like there might be a game where like maybe Kawhi is playing and they give Harden the night off. And it's like, hey, it's going to be Bones Highland's tonight or Kevin Porter Jr.'s night or whatever. And like the same thing could happen with some of these other guys. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. It's really about seeing what you have with some of these guys, and the Clippers just, again, need to do that sooner than later.
Part of the reason I like doing these lives, and I know this isn't Robert Flom's thing, to clap back in real time and to really get after somebody, but Andre Mack said, you brought up for a second the possibility of trading Derrick Jones Jr. at some point. Yeah. And Andre Mack lashes out and says, I would never let that dude run a franchise. Why would you trade a very good defender? And DJJ is a dummy move. You sound like a dude prioritizing money over play. That's all I'm hearing. Shut the hell up. I mean, I don't know how much he heard from what you said. It was obvious conjecture and just throwing stuff at the wall to see how things could change this season and how you get Jordan Miller into the rotation. I don't know if you want to respond to this or even dignify it with a response.
The money over play is the most confusing part to me. I mean, I'm not saying I should run the Clippers franchise either, but I don't know how that's money over play. That does not make any sense to me. I mean, it's, again, as we've been discussing, like if your goal is to win a championship this year, make a deep playoff run, then no, they should not trade Derrick Jones Jr. for like 3 second-round draft picks. That wouldn't make any sense. If you don't think that they're going to be that level of team and that they need to start trying to develop young talent and accumulate assets, you would start thinking about trading veterans. I mean, I totally, even though he's just on the team, like I get why people like are intrigued and excited about Derrick Jones Jr. He did, after all, shut down Paul George in the playoffs last year. And he's an exciting player. He has the big dunks. He's a good defender. But like, he's not a guy who I think needs to be prioritized. Like, we have to keep Derrick Jones Jr. Like, I like him. He was a good signing that I was a fan of them signing him. But I think if they get a good deal, like if they were able to get a first-round pick for him at the deadline, I mean, they should absolutely make that move, unless they're really good. And obviously, if they are, like, maybe they're like 33-20 at the trade deadline, then yeah, they shouldn't trade Derrick Jones Jr. because they'd be a good team and they'd be in line to make the playoffs. It really all just depends on how good this team is and pivoting in that direction.
You hear that, Andre Mack? You just got it called a casual in so many words by Robert Flom here. Let's go through, who do you think is in the 10-man rotation that Coach Lue has been talking about to start the season? Obviously, Kawhi Leonard is out, so that opens up some playing time. He's out indefinitely. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but that means you have a starting lineup, and that's already been revealed, with James Harden, with Norman Powell, with Terrence Mann, with Derrick Jones Jr., and Ivica Zubac. So who are the other 5 guys right now, Big Shot?
I think it's probably the guys who we saw the most in the preseason. So I guess it's Chris Dunn, Kevin Porter Jr., Amir Coffey, Nick Batum, and then the center is the question. Coming into this, Mo Bamba was kind of the presumed backup. It does not seem like he's going to be ready to start the season. It sure does not seem that way, which means it's going to be Kai Jones. I know Law Murray, our friend Law Murray, has been on Twitter talking about this. They're almost certainly going to convert his Exhibit 10 to a 2-way deal, and he's going to be the backup center to start the season until Mo Bamba is healthy. When Mo Bamba gets healthy, who the backup center is, I don't know. I'm not massive fans of either of them, to be honest. Not to lean too much into the Eeyore bit, yeah. I mean, the advantage of like Kai Jones being in training camp and getting reps with these guys and being there to start the season, like he will have a head start on Mo Bamba. So I mean, to start the season, it is going to be Kai Jones because we have nothing we've heard suggests Mo Bamba is going to be ready to play the start of the season. So yeah, I would guess that the bench will be Chris Dunn, Kevin Porter Jr. again, if he's not suspended, Amir Coffey, Nick Batum, Kai Jones would be the final 5.
And if KPJ is suspended, you're looking at Bones Highland before Jordan Miller still. That's where you think they will go.
I would guess so.
Okay.
I think just the ball handling and playmaking would be needed from that spot.
You made an interesting point, though. Put it in the hands of Chris Dunn. He's playing more off ball, and Jordan can obviously alleviate some of the burden there, bringing it up here and there.
Yeah,
but no,
I wouldn't mind either option. But yeah, and there's also be complications. Like I think Nico will get nights off. Maybe they'll try to wait until Kawhi is back to start doing that, because it'll be mighty thin in the front court if Kawhi's out and they decide to rest Nico. That would be really tough. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure once Kawhi is back, then Nick Batum will probably be. Maybe that opens up spot for Jordan Miller or Kobe Brown or whoever.
Because Jordan Miller, we don't assume is going to be playing the 4, even though there's a 6'5" guy in Derrick Jones Jr. who's going to be starting at the 4. Just having Kawhi out doesn't automatically open up minutes for Jordan Miller. It's Nico Batum who becomes more necessary at that point.
And honestly, this is where it gets tricky. I mean, I'm a huge Nick Batum fan, as I think most people who follow the Clippers are.
You have to be quite the casual not to like Nico Batum on the Clippers, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. I'm a little puzzled isn't the right word. I would start Nick Batum when Kawhi is out. I just think, even though he's not a great rebounder, I just feel like there could be really small. He's better kind of doing the low man defense kind of stuff than the other Clippers. But I get it. I mean, they want to keep his minutes down. He's been in the NBA for 8 17, 18 years. He's in his late 30s. He's played a million minutes. Like, I would start him, but yeah, I mean, if Jordan Miller is roughly Derrick Jones Jr. size. Derrick Jones Jr. is technically going to be playing the floor. Even though I think Terrence Mann is more likely to guard fours, Derrick Jones Jr. is probably going to be more point of attack. But yeah, like why not Jordan Miller? Like in college, he guarded Kyle Filipowski, who's a center. We've seen him in summer league guard big men. He was doing it actually just in the preseason game yesterday. He was matched up on the Kings big men a couple of times. He's very smart and he has really long arms. And like, yeah, he could do that, but I don't think it's likely.
He has a quick second jump too. I'm not saying he's Sean Marion, but when I talked about earlier what a good rebounder he showed me he was in the summer league and throughout preseason, I don't know what the numbers were in preseason, but I saw him get tough boards, like 50-50 balls.
He's very physical for a guy who's kind of as skinny as he is. He plays very physically, both on offense and on defense, which I really like.
Your guy Andre Mack had to respond after you gave that thorough and precise answer to him. He said, "Casual, huh? No manager who knows basketball would give up a very good veteran defender for nothing." Robert didn't say that, straw man. Why not try to be competitive, which the team will be? You guys just want a full rebuild. Will they be?
I mean, if you think the team will be competitive, like I said, if you think they will be, then yes, I don't think they will trade him or should trade him. Do you guys want a full? I would love a full rebuild. The Clippers can't do a full rebuild because they don't own their draft picks for the next 5 years.
In fact, they actually have to win to hold on to this year's to stay in front of Houston.
Correct. But I mean, that's why, to try to expand upon this, like that's why you would trade some of these guys, is to rebuild your asset pile and start reaccumulating some of these picks that you've given away in all these win now moves over the years. I'm not saying that I think the Clippers will do that or necessarily even should that. It just is an option if the season is going south, because a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. will have value on the trade market. But yeah, I'm not saying the Clippers are going to trade him. I hope he has a great year with the Clippers. He's a fun player. I think he's a good fit on the roster, especially when Kawhi Leonard is back. But it's just going to be tough. There's a lot of questions coming in about trades. People are really want to see some trades happen.
Is this nuts? Miles Johnson says, "Is there a chance Harden could be traded mid-season if the team is really bad?"
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's on a 1 year basically. It's a 1+1, $35 million each year.
It is very funny. Like people say all the time, like, why can't the Clippers trade Kawhi? Like he's never healthy. He's the one guy who they cannot trade because he is not healthy. He has more value to the Clippers than he would anywhere else. But yeah, I mean, Harden, if this team is like, I said earlier, if they're 33-20, they would not trade a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. If they're 20-33 at the deadline, like everybody might be on the table to try to recoup some value.
What did you think of this comp from Joe Rosenfeld here? I kind of like it, actually. Jordan Miller is somewhere between a smaller Tayshaun Prince and Coutinho Mobley. Interesting hybrid.
Pretty lofty comparisons.
They are. Maybe he's saying he projects like he could be ceiling high. If he develops enough.
Prince is really interesting. That's a very interesting comp. I can't say Coutinho Mobley with like the downhill driving a little bit, I guess. Tayshaun Prince is really, I mean, that's Tayshaun Prince was like a key player on some championship teams. That would be quite something. If Jordan Miller was close to that, I can see both of those. I had a comp for him at some point earlier this year that I really liked, and I totally forgot it. So yeah.
What?
Yeah, sometime over the summer during the height of summer league when everybody was really inflamed about it.
Oh, I remember. I heard it. It was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think.
That was not Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I wish.
Wasn't you?
No.
What is ultimate ceiling for Jordan Miller? You said he could be a starter, but not a star necessarily.
Honestly, I mean, Tayshaun Prince as like not like that exact player, but that kind of impact guy is probably. I don't think he's ever going to be like a lead creator type or guy who like in the NBA is averaging like 25 points a game. But like he could be a guy who averages like in the double digits, is relatively efficient, is a plus defender, can do some other stuff. Yeah, I mean, Tayshaun, not the exact style of play, but like that level is maybe the ultimate ceiling. That is a 100% ceiling. I'd say a more reasonable ceiling is like honestly like a Terrence Mann level player, probably. I mean, I know that sounds crazy. People are like, there are some people who probably think Jordan Miller is better than Terrence Mann right now. He is not.
Watch the chat, it's coming.
Yeah. He's Portland. Nick Batum is interesting. Portland Nico was extremely good. But yeah, I mean, I can see it again. These are Nico at that stage was a guy who could do a little bit of everything.
I said something and didn't give the full context of it, so some casuals piped up. Luis Virgil said, Clippers don't have their own picks, LOL. This is true. They don't control their own pick this season because OKC has a pick swap with either the Clippers or the Houston Rockets. Here's the rub. They're going to take the worst of those two picks. So that means the Clippers need to be in front of the Houston Rockets. But they can't have the Rockets be so bad that theirs ends up being top 10 protected, which it is. So if they're a bottom 10 team, they could fall into that category. And then even if the Clippers are better than Houston, because Houston was really bad, they still would end up OKC taking the Clippers pick. Right, Rob?
I believe that's correct. Yeah, they need the Yeah, it's a very confusing draft scenario.
We need Houston to be worse than the Clippers, but not too much worse.
I don't think they'll be a bottom 10 team. Something would have to go very horribly wrong in Houston for them to be a bottom 10 team. But yeah, the Clippers really need to be better than Houston, which might be tough. Houston has a lot of talent.
They do, but they do have some fit issues. It's not like Şengün and Jalen Green have exactly turned into Kobe and Shaq on the court or anything like that yet. And even that's probably not the best comp. I don't know. I mean, that's a great tandem.
Fox and Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah, that's better. Guys that actually like each other. Domantas playing 30 minutes last night, and the Clippers still made him look stupid at times. Not him, but all the turnovers by Sacramento. That was the most impressive win in preseason to me. Are you a little bit?
Kevin Porter Jr. wasn't playing. Wonder if that had anything to do with it.
Wait a second. You guys rewind for that conversation. We had that off the top. Big Shot's talking about old ass now. I want to ask you in general, because I felt this a little bit on the recent podcast on 213 Hoops, but you didn't necessarily make it explicit. Are you slightly higher on the team after preseason than you were heading into preseason, even with this Kawhi news?
I think I'm higher on them than like the general media. Like I was listening to the Bill Simmons Russillo over-unders pod, and all three of them slammed the Clippers under, which is, I believe, 37.5. I can see the argument that they'll be under that, but I would not be like I'm locking this in as the under. I think there's a pretty good chance they're better than that. I don't know if I'm higher on them. The way they played defense was really encouraging. I mean, I'm higher. I think they'll be fun to watch. I'm more encouraged about their watchability, which to me is very important. I care almost as much about watchability as I do about how good they are.
This is why you love the Miami Heat. It's just watchability.
Yeah, they're just a blast to watch play basketball. Watching Bam Adebayo take 16-foot mid-range jumpers all game, and Jimmy Butler work his way to the foul line. It is effective, but yeah, I can't say I'm higher on them. I mean, the only player who I think I've really shifted a little bit more is Jordan Miller being as good as he was in preseason after doing everything in summer league. Like I feel even more confident about him. The rest of the roster, I mean, it's mostly veterans who we've seen play before. Like, I'm really just not going to take much from preseason from any of these guys outside of like some of the young dudes. My biggest weakness to me on the roster is still backup center. And it's honestly it's the main reason why I'm actually not like this team will be like a 500 team. Like the Mo Bamba Kai Jones pairing is just I'm not into it. I hope they prove me wrong. Kai Jones seems like an incredibly hard worker. Mo Bamba has a reputation as being like an awesome dude. Like I'm really rooting for both of them. There's very little evidence either of them is positive NBA players. And that is bad. We've seen in past years that when the Clippers do not have a good backup center, things go really terribly wrong, even when they had a lot more talent.
This is why they were able to win 42 games in the 21-22 season, because they took care of the backup center by having Hartenstein.
Don't bring it up.
I
think there's like a 10,000 word like book that could be written about how the Clippers collapsed actually just because of the John Wall, Isaiah Hartenstein thing. But anyway, that's a very depressing topic to go into.
That one miscalculation, and it was the same old story. The Stars wanted a point guard. They kept trying to find one. It came at the cost of losing Isaiah Hartenstein, who, I mean, in the end, if Kawhi keeps getting hurt, it doesn't really make a difference anyways. That's the overwhelming reason why they never won in the 2-1-3 era. Man, we're getting a lot of questions in here. Big Shot, do you still got time? Because I got more for you.
Yeah, I can hang out.
Okay. It's only, 10:30 your time?
Yeah, it's a Friday night. I mean, it's, I'm old, but I'm not completely washed.
Just come on, you're rich homie Flom. You're a young man.
R.I.P.
Ticket. Yeah, R.I.P. Mo Bamba, I know you've been blacked out on a lot of games with the Philadelphia 76ers, even though you live there. Have you seen enough to get a gauge on his floor versus his ceiling and where he could land in that area as a Clipper now? Because he's still pretty young and obviously was a very high draft pick.
He's not that young. I mean, he's like 26. Like he could get better. And we talked about this on the pod, but I guess for the people in here who might not listen to the pod, I mean, something that's very glaring with NBA role players is how former fan bases talk about them. Because those are the guys that like mainstream media is not watching or paying attention to.
Right.
And those are the
all
guys
felt smart talking about Terrence Mann over the years, and Zach Lowe was like the only other mainstream guy that would talk about him because he knows ball.
Yeah. And like those are the guys fans who watch the team day in and day out. Like everybody here in the chat, are like, this guy is actually really good. Like Terrence Mann is actually good. Or like Jordan Miller, the mainstream hype is starting to build for him a little bit. Mo Bamba is a guy who, when you talk to former fan bases, it's just like we're not sad he's not on the team anymore. Again, nothing like personal. It's not like we really hated that guy. It's that guy just was not particularly impactful on the court for us.
Was some of it because of frustration, because of maybe what he should project as or what he is capable of doing some nights?
For Magic fans, certainly, because I mean they drafted him sixth.
6th or 7th? Yeah.
6th in a stacked draft. I mean, not just ahead of like SGA or Mikal Bridges, but like even just like one ahead of Wendell Carter, who they ended up getting anyway, but he was like a significantly better player at the same position. That was a tough draft to have a 6th pick on Mo Bamba. So I'm sure that is part of it, but like you talk to Lakers fans, you talk to Sixers fans, and it's just like, I think for him, it's as simple as like when his shot is falling, and he's a legitimately good 3-point shooter. It's by far his best skill in the NBA. He actually is a good 3-point shooter. The problem is he actually doesn't take enough of them. And then on nights when they aren't falling, it's just like he does not provide much else. Like he's an okay rebounder. He can protect the rim, but like isn't really good at like actual NBA defense in terms of positioning, in terms of guarding in the post, switching on the perimeter. He's not really good at any of that. He's not like a guy who can make plays for others at all. He's not a guy who can create it all. He's really going to be a nice pick and pop guy. He's kind of like super washed Serge Ibaka, maybe, if you want to make a comp. Not the best of comps, I guess. But there will be games where he's helpful. Like there will be games where he makes like 3 threes in his stint, and it's gonna be like Mo Bamba. And then there will be other games where he has like 3 fouls in 4 minutes, and rebounds are going through his hands, and whoever the other team's center is pushing him around on defense, and it's just like, and there'll be
wide variance of outcome type player.
Yes, I mean he's like, it's very interesting. God, I was almost going to comp him to Montrezl Harrell. He's a guy who like shooting is the main thing he brings. So yeah, like on nights when he is not making shots, when he's 0 of 2 from 3, it's probably not going to be a good Mo Bamba game. On nights when it's 2 of 2 from 3, it'll probably be a very nice Mo Bamba game. And that's a tough line to walk, especially for a big man. You might take that from a guard, but like that's tough from a big man.
Why isn't his rim protection better? What's the issue there? Is he have the Mason Plumlee thing where he's just out of position and overreacts?
Yeah, I mean, he's out of position a lot. I think he's also not super strong, which is really important in terms of being able to like go up and like really contest and not get moved out of the way. He does not have a good second jump. So like if he goes, like he might still be like in the air, and there are already guys getting offensive rebounds going back up with it. I would just say fundamentals. Like again, I don't think he's not a guy who doesn't try. I just don't think he's just not great at defense. I don't know. It's defense is something. It's so hard to quantify defense. It's so hard to talk about defense. But like he's just not a good defensive player. But he will block some shots. He will have some sick blocks, which will be great. It's fun. Blocks are fun. They're awesome. I'd love to block a shot.
He gave up 63%. That was the field goal percentage within 6 feet against him last season, which is like 10% higher than Ivica Zubac, who was the best in that area. He was at 52%, so 11% higher. For reference. Does it ever frustrate you, the Zubac haters and doubters? I put out a tweet earlier today where I took what Coach Lou said last night, talking about him being in the mix for Defensive Player of the Year, him shooting for that.
I mean, that's just crazy. I'm sorry, man. Ty Lue, good on Ty Lue for big upping Ivica Zubac. He is not winning Defensive Player of the Year. I'm sorry.
Aim high, but the numbers do say best rim protector last season. His first season with the Clippers, he finished number 1 in that area, restricted
He's
area.
very good. He's very good.
He's always top 5 there. He is.
He's very good.
Does it frustrate you how many people in Clipper Nation still do not think he's good? To me, it's just based upon bias because the first year he had the broken hands and he dropped a lot of passes, understandably so. So now whenever he drops a pass, they still think he sucks in that area. Even though, guys, he'd have like 10 turnovers a night if it was really the way you say it is.
I don't know if that's it. I mean, to me, it's really just a bias against non-flashy players. And Zoo is about as non-flashy as it gets. He is you run him out there, he will get rebounds, he will make plays on defense, he will finish at the rim, he will hit some hook shots. He is rarely going to have insanely athletic plays. He is not going to hit jump shots. He's not going to create for himself much outside of some ugly looking but very effective hooks. And that's really why people like flash, and like that's totally fine. Like look, basketball at the end of the day is an entertainment sport, and like if Zoo is just not super fun for you to watch, like I get it. He's not the flashiest player. It's basically impossible to deny that he is a very solid starting center. And it's the hate is so weird because he's also been on really cheap deals. Like sometimes guys who are even like good but are overpaid. Like think Tobias Harris for most of his Sixers tenure, who was like, even Sixers fans would admit for most of it, he was a good player, but just way overpaid. And that leads to some hate. But like Zoo has been on really cheap deals. So I don't get it. I think it's just like aesthetic bias for the most part.
Marvin Bagley might still be making more than Ivica Zubac this season because Zoo's new deal doesn't kick in until next year.
Yeah, it's possible.
Marvin Bagley getting the bag, stealing the
good for him, man.
He's at 12. He's at 12.5 million. That's more, I think, than Ivica Zubac this season on the old deal. Like, that's crazy, right? How can you not appreciate Big Zoo? What is wrong with you guys? Come on.
It is to some extent. It is just a way of watching that. Like I love smart players who know where to be on the court. I love solid defense. I love rebounding. Like, give me some rebounding, please. The Clippers have had so many bad rebounders over the years. Zoo is like, I mean, he's not like Dennis Rodman, but he's a very capable rebounder. He boxes out. I just frankly, I don't really get the Zoo hate at all, really. He's also been extremely consistent for the Clippers. So
you're getting a lot of love in here. Jeremy Mormon said, I love Robert Flom. He's one of my favorite hosts from 213 Hoops. I never knew what he looked like. Thank you, Adam. We've gotten a couple people saying
Yeah,
your
I do not do
assessment
video
of
pods.
your assessment of Mo Bamba was basically he's mid. We're not going to call him mid Bamba though, okay? He can do some things for this Clippers team. I have high hopes for Mo Bamba, but let's get into Kai Jones, because if Mo Bamba's not playing the first couple of weeks or month of the season, and Kai Jones continues to play anywhere near the level he's been at, and he did not have a good game last night against Sabonis, but he still had a crazy highlight dunk and an and one. I just can't believe how quickly he progresses, because game one in Honolulu was really bad against the Golden State Warriors for him.
That was tough.
The next three games were pretty solid in areas that he needed to improve in immediately, like setting screens, and that still leaves something to be desired at times. But you could see he got coached up after the game against Golden State. They said you have to actually set the screen, use some physicality, and you saw it the very next game against Brooklyn.
Kai Jones is somebody who, and I don't mean this as a negative, even though it's going to come off that way. He's a guy who looks good in preseason because he's super athletic and he plays really hard all the time. And that is a valuable thing. It's the reason Moses Brown is somehow still getting NBA contracts, even though he's objectively abysmal. He plays really, really hard. He runs the court. And like, especially for a big man, like I was saying on our pod the other day, like, even if you're not particularly good, if you're a big man who runs the court hard in transition, you will get 1 or 2 dunks every single game just by doing that. And like, if Kai Jones plays a role in this team, he's going to get probably at least 1 dunk every game where he just outruns the opposing big man. That is valuable. Coaches love that, especially from big men, guys who come in and play really hard and move. And those guys do shine in preseason because, a lot of veterans are not playing particularly hard in preseason. They're not boxing out super hard. They're not crashing the board super hard. They're not rotating as hard as they might. I do like the coachability. The athleticism is undeniable. I mean, it is. The questions about like the rebounding,
Wait, Jonathan Ing is saying he doesn't have the explosiveness that JaVale and DJ had. Maybe it's slightly less, but it's not nothing.
He's not as big as those guys, though.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, Kai Jones is like, I think he's like 6'10". JaVale is like definitely 7 feet.
Yeah, that's true.
And like, young DJ was pretty slender, but like he really, really beefed up where he could like really just dunk through people. And we saw that yesterday with Kai Jones. I don't think he's the level at DeAndre Jordan at his peak was just an absolutely staggering level athlete.
That's fair. Ask Brandon Knight.
But Kai Jones is a good athlete. I mean, if you're talking about upside, again, if we want to return to like upside, like he's younger than Mo Bamba and probably has more upside than Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba's floor is probably higher on a game-to-game basis. But again, like who knows how long? I mean, Mo Bamba does not sound like he's practicing. It does not sound. We have not been given any sort of a timeline. No timeline has been reported by any of the beat writers on the team.
It was called a wear and tear knee issue for a guy who's 26.
Yeah.
But big man, it happens.
So yeah, I mean, Kai Jones is going to be the backup to start the year, whether we like it or not. A lot of fans seem to like it, and I hope he does well. But yeah, I mean, it's not a position of strength. Like there are going to be some games where he fouls a lot or is out of position a lot. But like I said, I mean, he plays really hard, and that does have value. Like that legitimately does. And I'm not like people think that that's like a knock on somebody, like, oh, they just play hard. Like even in the NBA, playing really hard and with a lot of energy all the time has legitimate value.
Yeah, and I think what's demanded of a backup center, a lot of it is motor stuff. You still need to be in position because it's not like Mason Plumlee didn't try. He tried too hard at times. He's always out of position. Because he was still, even after the injury, he had 1 reverse dunk at least. Like he still is a good enough athlete. It's between the ears with his discipline defensively.
Oh man, Plumlee! Wow, what a legend. The reverse dunks, the bringing the ball up the court.
He had a
Yeah.
crazy Magic Johnson turnover that went into the first row for the Phoenix Suns in preseason. I don't know if you saw it.
I'm so happy. People, I think there was a comment way down below that asked if Mason is better than Mo Bamba and Kai Jones.
I don't think so anymore.
It's
Not the
close.
guy we saw last year. I don't think so.
He's probably more consistent. I would say Daniel Tice is better, but I'm also irrationally fond of Daniel Tice.
Well, he's in position. He's just too short, so he gets dunked on.
But he knows how to play basketball. Like, I like guys who know how to play basketball. This is it sounds crazy
Big if
talking
true.
about NBA players. I love guys who just know how to play basketball, who like know where to be on the court, who like know like, okay, I'm catching the ball in the short roll. This defender is going to step up. I have like a really nice bounce pass to a guy cutting in from the wing. Daniel Tice would make that play all the time, like, or kick the ball out to three or take a little floater. Like, his skill was really good. I prefer guys like that generally over crazy athletes who are a little bit less fundamentally sound. I mean, Kai Jones is a guy, he's a perfect flyer for this team. I'm not super high on him, but like, he's absolutely the kind of player who this team should be taking swings on. And I'm happy that they're going to bring him into the roster.
There's another comp here I like from Bryant Lovos, who uses my Sky Jones nickname and says, can develop into a slightly better Bismack Biyombo this season. We'll be all right. I don't know about this season, but over time, I don't hate that comp.
He needs to get much better on defense. He already might be better on offense than Bismack. Poor Bismack, like one of the worst offensive players. Just, you want to talk about bad hands, but he was really good on he was very, very good on defense. It's
what
why
was
he
the
stayed
series he like won for Toronto or won against Toronto in the Eastern Conference. Like, this is probably a decade ago now. It was like Toronto, his big coming out party.
And then the Magic gave him like a 4-year, $70 million deal, like in 2016. And it was horrible. It was so bad. That would honestly be an awesome outcome. Bismack Biyombo, like, was he kind of a not great top 10 pick? Sure. But he was also in the NBA for like a decade. Kai Jones, it would be an awesome career for Kai Jones if he had a Bismack Biyombo type career. I don't think he'll be that good on defense. He's already better on offense, though.
Yeah. I may be looking at 2016, where he averaged like a 10. Or no, he averaged, I mean, it wasn't that crazy. He had some big moments. I don't know if it was against Indiana or Miami or Cleveland, as they would eventually lose, obviously, in the Eastern Conference Finals. But he showed out, and that might have been that contract year. Yeah. People are saying it was 2016 versus Miami or Charlotte. Did I even read that one off? Okay, let's get into this. I want to play you some audio. This is from yesterday. Actually, before we get into this, we'll go chronologically through the Kawhi Leonard day yesterday with the breaking news that he is out indefinitely. And this came from Shams Charania, now with ESPN, and Young Masuk, who we love. Has come on the show before. You guys might want to check out that show. But it kind of looked like an educated guess more than actual breaking news to me. Saying a guy is out indefinitely that hasn't practiced yet and is going to have to practice and have some real ramp up before he plays in an NBA game kind of tells you that, you know, they're just kind of reading the situation. I don't know. I mean, the Clippers, I'm not saying the Clippers didn't give them that, but it's something we all knew that, yeah, he's out indefinitely. We don't know when he's going to come back. He hasn't practiced yet.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just the definition of the term out indefinitely. He is, by definition, out indefinitely. There is no timeline. It sounds scarier than it is. I think a lot of people who are NBA fans who are not paying attention to the Clippers, talk that in kind of the wrong way. But yeah, he is by definition out indefinitely. Like, there is no timeline for him. He's been out. He is not reported to be back anytime immediately soon. So yeah, I completely agree. It was not really a story or news at all, particularly.
A non-story story, maybe a slow day at ESPN. They had it in the bag. They could have dropped it today too if they wanted to. Wouldn't have made a difference, really.
Hey man, they just re-signed Kendrick Perkins to a massive new deal. So yeah.
Can Kai be pre-ACL tear Kendrick Perkins? Fulfill the promise of the Kendrick Perkins handles. Okay, so then we get this. and I gave Joey Leonard a lot of credit for asking the tough question that I've asked reporters, but he asked this. It was the first question to Coach Lue pregame yesterday. I'll share the screen. We'll play this as well. I know I played it on a couple of other episodes, including Clippers Talk After Dark, I think, last night. But here it was in its entirety, in case Bob Flom hasn't heard it and anybody in the chat.
So we obviously saw the Kawhi news today that he's going to be out indefinitely. I just wanted to ask, when we were talking to Lawrence in Vegas, and he expressed a level of disappointment that Kawhi was not going to be given the opportunity to kind of ramp up and have an opportunity to compete in the Olympics. What transpired between then and now to where you guys felt a level of optimism that he was going to be able to potentially contribute in Paris to where now he's not ready for the start of the season?
Yeah, I mean, he felt good. He felt good. He looked good. The swelling was down. Everything was going in the right direction. So he had worked hard to get to that point. And then, once you start playing, you never know what's going to happen, But he was in position, we thought, in the right position to go forward. And like I said, it was just a setback. So that was unfortunate.
So there was a setback between then and now?
Well, because I'm saying after the USA trials, yeah, it was. We continue to ramp up, continue to play, continue to work out.
Robert, was this insightful at all to you, at least more so than what we heard earlier in the day on indefinite? Because we had not heard about a setback before. In fact, just hours before, La Murray said there has been no setback. Now he's saying he's talking about since training camp, I believe.
Yes.
He might come on tomorrow and clarify that. But so it sounded like a setback right after Team USA is what Coach Lue was talking about there?
What I took this, and certainly I would love to hear you talk with Law about this. The Law Murray thing to me was he was talking about a Kawhi setback like since the events of the summer, and that there had been no setback since then, which I think is the case, that there has not been a setback since then.
Since when?
Since the Olympics, since like that whole incident.
I'm just saying I may press him on this tomorrow a little bit because it doesn't say that. It just says no setback from the injury. Maybe I didn't read the whole article or miss something, but I'll read what it says from La Murray here. And I'm not criticizing. It's Kawhi. It is so difficult to get news and accurate news on these things and have clarity. It rarely ever happens. But the article that I saw from The Athletic, I have to go back so far here on the timeline. Law's been doing some work. It said this, October 17th, yesterday. What time did this come out? 5:25. This is right before the Coach Lue presser at 5:45. Team source has confirmed that Kawhi Leonard has not suffered any kind of setback as he works to strengthen his surgically repaired right knee that was last operated on in May 2024. Now, I need to get into more of the article, but I mean, that's not specific of since September or since training camp started, because Coach Lue is saying there was a setback right after Team USA. That's how I
don't
hear
think
it.
The way I took the Ty Lue comment, and I wish I could ask Ty Lue. I wish I could, as I've mentioned on the pod, just give some truth serum to
get your ass out to the dome.
What I took that was that the setback happened during the ramp up to the Olympics, not after the Olympics. It was that in those practices, when Kawhi was actually practicing with Team USA, that he went in, everything seemed okay, right? He had like this scope, this minor procedure in May. The ramp up to the Olympics was in mid-July. So it'd been like a month and a half, 2 months. He came in, everything seemed okay. And after a few days of practicing, the swelling started up again. That's the setback. Therefore, he was sent home. And that there has not been a setback since then is the rough timeline that I would say has happened. I have some conspiracy adjacent theories about that.
Wait a second. If that information was out before Joey asked that last night, that there was a setback definitively at some point this summer, and somebody could have got their hands on that, it would have been reported. So I'm a little bit leery about, the Athletic's talking about from this point and not from that point. If they had that, it would have been reported, right?
I mean, do you want me to go conspiracy theory Flom here?
put on the. I'll find some tinfoil.
I don't think there was a setback at all. I think that Kawhi really wanted to play in the Olympics, and that his knee, they had this thing in May. It had been less than 2 months, and he went there, and there was a video of him walking into the arena or something where it looked like he was almost limping. Not like a full limp, but he was walking gingerly. And my guess is maybe he was still injured. Maybe it was just he was really rusty and like just did not look up to snuff. But I just think he showed up and they were like, we don't think this guy is really in game condition, and that there was still some sort of swelling or some sort of knee pain or something like that. And it was just like, like a setback to me implies like a very specific like injury or like something happened. And I agree with you that that would have been reported had it happened. So to me, it's
or
just
at least if they had the info on it, they would have said, the Athletic would have said, there has been no setback since the original setback during the Olympic tryouts. But nobody ever said there was a setback then until yesterday from Coach Lou.
correct. So yes. So yeah, my thing is that he had some sort of thing in May. He had the swelling, as we all know, that kept him out of the regular season, really hindered him in the playoffs. He had this scope and minor cleanup or whatever it was in May. It hasn't even been reported what it was, but it clearly had to have been pretty minor because he was practicing for the Olympics, so it cannot have been major. And he really wanted to play in the Olympics. You know, one of the things that we always get really mad about is when people say Kawhi does not want to play. That is not the case. Players always want to play. They always want to play. And Kawhi, I think by all reporting, and he's a very secretive sort of person, as we all know, seemed to really want to play in the Olympics. And I think he was like, I'm good to go. And at least basic like eye tests and physicals were like, he seems to be okay. They sent him there and he just did not look right. Whether he had an actual setback, whether it be like some sort of minor injury or just like it was too soon after this cleanup and like the
The
swelling.
inflammation came back. The swelling came back. That's how I interpret it.
And like to me, that's not really a setback. That's just like it was too soon after his injury and he wasn't ready to start doing that intensive of practices again. That's just a technicality though. So
No,
me,
but that is the issue. There's a difference between he got surgery and he tried to play too fast because of that surgery,
correct.
or after that surgery
Yes.
for the Olympics, and therefore it was just too soon, versus it's flaring up the same way because he tried 5-on-5 basketball again, just like he tried in the playoffs. And even though he had surgery, the flare up happened again.
Yes, those are two related, but yes, distinct things. And yes, it is unclear which of those is correct.
Yeah. That's what scares me. The second one there, the latter scares me, that he had the surgery and the same thing happened still after he tried to play 5-on-5. Not because he had the surgery,
Yes.
but because it's not going away.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what to be honest, that's what like the reporting would lead, right? Like that's what it would seem to be. And that now, like they say they have a handle on it. So they figured out what's causing the swelling and what's causing the inflammation and pain and all that sort of stuff. So like maybe it did flare up, but like sometime over the summer since then, they were able to really understand what it was. I don't, it's very unclear why the Clippers are so unclear about this. I see a lot of comments talking about lies and cover-ups and all that sort of stuff. We simply don't know. They're really like this about most injuries. It's not just Kawhi. Like we remember the whole Paul George thing a couple years ago when it's like, he's just around the corner. He's warming up. He's getting ready to go. And then it was like, well, no, he actually was like a month away from actually being ready to
Because
play
I asked
the
him
playoffs.
at media day, when would you have been able to come back?
Yes.
He said July.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not just a Kawhi thing. It really is not. And you can talk about why the Clippers do that. You know, and there are all sorts of reasons you could put out there, and you could have a several hour long podcast about just that. But I don't think it's just a Kawhi thing, though. I do think Kawhi in particular and his camp are definitely, you know, like to keep these things a little close to the vest.
I don't think it's just a Clippers thing, not giving full information
It's so
regarding a
silly.
player's injury
Yes.
in sports. I think
It's
it's
so silly.
fairly common. It's just amplified because Kawhi, unfortunately, has been so injury prone, so you run into it more often.
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe they're more secretive slightly, but I don't think it's that different than what you get from teams all the time in sports.
No, I mean, if we're talking to play into the bit that I'm a Sixers fan, we don't know if Joel Embiid is going to play on opening night.
That's a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it just happens. It's to me, it's all very silly. Like, I get there's like some extent of like literal patient confidentiality, but like it's also just like public information. And I mean, this is where things get really tricky with like the onset of sports gambling and betting and stuff. Is like it's gonna be really, there's gonna be a lot of pressure on these teams to be more honest about it. And honestly, I think they should be, not for gambling reasons, but just because like it's always just like the thing about like maybe it's gamesmanship or like what, it's just so silly. But yeah, I definitely don't think it's unique just for the Clippers or just for Kawhi.
Okay, I'm going to give you what I've been concerned about it, and I talk about it. I just did talk about it here with Kawhi. Like it was asked on media day from Om Young-Masuk to him, is this something you may have to manage the rest of your career? And he acknowledged that it could be, but they think they have a handle on it, basically. That has always been my concern. Because if the only reason that the swelling is going down is because he's not playing high-level 5-on-5 basketball, but then when he does, it goes back up, that's a real problem. That's the issue. That's what worries me. That's what keeps me up at night.
It shouldn't keep you up all night. There's nothing you can do about it. This
Eeyore sleeps soundly, I know.
I wish.
Does that strike a chord with you at all? Is because I think that, he acknowledged it. It could be.
If that is the case, then I mean, as much as I refuse to give Kendrick Perkins any credit at all, if that's the case, he really might not be able to play NBA basketball consistently, which and at some point there is is there quality of life post-retirement going to be impacted? Not to get super depressing. It's really hard to say. I will say there are some people who are like, Kawhi's career is over. I don't think that. I think he will come back this season even. It might even be in a month or so. I think
maybe less. It's indefinite.
Yeah, who knows? So that is the worry, that as soon as he ramps back up, the knee swelling will start up again. They seem relatively confident about it, but then again, as we've just said, they are very evasive about this. So it's hard to know, but I will say they seem relatively confident they have a handle on this. How long it will last is really the thing. I think there's a very good chance he comes back and looks good for 20 or 25 games. The question is, can he sustain that an entire season, an entire intense playoff run? That is doubtful to me.
And maybe that's all it is. They think he could come back. He thinks he could play today. The way he talks about it seems to be like, yeah, I want to play opening night. The way he talked about it in Honolulu makes you think that they're just being overly cautious for a good reason, because they want the sustainability. They don't want any setbacks. They don't want him to play for 2 weeks and then be out for a month. All that makes sense to me. But yeah, I do have some concerns. Everybody does here. So if I throw at you finally here, Big Shot, Kawhi Leonard plays 50 games at a high level this season. Where does this Clippers team end up standings wise in the West?
How high a level?
Not the 30-game stretch where he set all-time efficiency records last season, shooting 57%, 51 from three, 90 from the free throw line. But let's say top 10 NBA player level.
That's very high level. I wouldn't even take that. That would be kind of surprising.
Well, somewhere between each and every night. Some nights Kawhi, he looks like the best player in the league.
Yeah.
Some nights he looks like a top 10 player. Some nights he looks like a top 20 player. There's a potpourri of those type of games,
for 50 games.
Yeah. An even mix.
I mean, you would hope that the Clippers would go over 500 in those 50 games. So if you get 50 games of that level from Kawhi, you go maybe 28 and 22 in those games.
That's
what
it.
do you do? what do you do in the remaining 32 games? I mean, 28-22 is good. Like that would be on pace for what, like a 47 win season or whatever, 48 win. That's a pretty good record. I'm just saying, like, that's if you say 28-22 for those 50, that's 32 games. You think maybe they get to 14-18 without him? That would be 42-40. And honestly, I think that would, like, again, their over under is 37.5, and everybody's betting the under. So to me, that's like would be, for a lot of people, that would be a better season than anticipated. That particular scenario is why I would tell people not to bet the under, because I think that's a very possible outcome, is that he does play 50 games at a pretty good level. The Clippers are quite good when he does play and are just good enough when he doesn't to get to like a 500-ish record. If he plays 50 games, I would say like a slightly over 500 record. And for the question from Ray about dinner, sadly, no India, no curry tonight.
They know you. You got some stalkers in here.
Yeah,
42 wins, though. Last year, that would not get you in the play-in. The Warriors were at 46.
No.
Do you think the West, like, because we all anticipate Memphis is back in the mix, if they're healthy again, we're talking about how tough it could be. Maybe the high-end talent isn't as high, but there's still so many tough, really good teams around a 5 seed that it drives down records and you won't have to win 46 games to make the play-in?
Yeah, I mean, like, you think about this season compared to last season. As you said, the Grizzlies, like, even if they're already getting injured, which is just they're almost as cursed as the Clippers. They're still going to be much better than last year. The Spurs, even though I think people are going a little crazy with them, should be quite a bit better and are going to be trying to win games this year.
What's quite a bit better? They won 22 last year.
I think they could get to like 32, 33. That leaves only 2 teams that are going to not be trying to win games very hard, which is the Jazz and the Trailblazers. There are going to be 12 other teams in the West that have postseason aspirations. In the Eastern Conference, you have 9 or 10 probably. I would say at least 9. Like, they're not going to be – the East is going to be – if the Clippers were in the East, I think they could get to like 45 or 46 wins because the bottom of the East is so bad. Like, I think this team could definitely consistently beat Charlotte and Washington and Brooklyn and all those teams. They would get, there are 5 or 6 really bad teams in the East. There's only 2 in the West, maybe 3. If like the Spurs are probably only a little bit better than those teams. But they have Wemby. And like that, there could be games where Wemby is just the best player on the court and you just lose to them. That's really it. I mean, if they were in the East, I think the Clippers would be, I would say, a play-in lock. I'd be very confident that they could get to like 9 or maybe even like 8 or 7. Like, I think there would be a near lock for that. But it's the West, and like all these teams are going to try to win. The ceiling, I think, for this team, like if Kawhi gets to like 60 games, which seems very unlikely, like this team could get to like the mid 40s and get a play-in spot. I think this team probably finishes like 11th in the West. But I mean, it like, a month ago I was much higher on them because there seemed like a decent chance Kawhi would play to start the season, and now there is 0 chance. So you have to adjust your data or your projections.
I mean, I'm going to ask Law about this tomorrow, but when he put out the tweet after we got the thing from China with his PR representative, which I did confirm that was her, I got some inside information on that. When Law put out Kawhi is fine, what I didn't expect is he still wouldn't be able to practice at this point. That's something I did not expect.
I was also not in. I mean, yeah, I thought I wasn't super confident he'd be ready to start the season, but I certainly thought he would probably be, practicing in the, in training camp.
And again, Law has great sources. That's what he got. Not his fault.
What does fine mean if we're getting really existential?
Well, that's why I'm saying, like, I would expect him to be practicing within the week of the regular season starting. When I hear guys fine to me meant, because that tweet came out and that report from China came out just about 4 or 5 days before the Lawrence Frank press conference. Fine to me is not, the swelling is almost gone from a surgery he had in May.
Yeah, that is also not what I would describe as fine. I agree.
It's not Law's fault. I'll ask him
No, I
about
mean,
it tomorrow.
And again, there are all sorts of, there's just, it's tough to know. And the Clippers, as we've discussed, and teams in general are not great about reporting injuries. And there are people who are just optimistic, like in guys' camps or in team settings. Like there could have been even if there was no setback, maybe there was some sense a month ago that Kawhi's feeling better. Everybody's really excited about training camp starting, and it's Kawhi will be there. Like maybe he will be ready. And then it hits, and it's we want to be cautious. And it also depends to what, where at what level of the Clippers organization just do some of these directives come from. I don't think Steve Ballmer's getting involved in Kawhi Leonard's practicing, but is Lawrence Frank, are there people on the Clippers training staff or in the coaching staff who are we think Kawhi might be good to go? And the Clippers front office is no, we need to hold off another week or two or whatever. And that's where some of this reporting could get crossed the wires, because there might very well be people who are legitimately would know and have some insight into this, who might think one thing and some other people might think something else. It's reporting is not the easiest game to get into.
That is really well said. Not just the last part. Really well said. He is Robert Flom. I know you guys love him because you've been saying that here in the comment section. Now you got to see him here on Clippers Talk Live and interact with him a little bit. What was dinner earlier? Can
I had roasted tofu and Brussels sprouts with some rice and some soy sauce glaze sauce.
Ooh, my guy eats clean. Maybe if I ate that clean, I get to 10% body fat like I was supposed to before the damn season starts.
I am nowhere close to that. It's fine. I don't want to know what my body fat is, but it might be double 10%. So
come on, stand up for a second. Let's see. No, we'll let you go. I know it's late over there. It's past 11 o'clock. Everybody, follow Big Shot Bob Flom. Robert, give out all the different platforms that you are on and where people can find you and listen to you and read you.
Yeah, I am on Twitter at RichHomieFlom, RIP to my guy. The site I manage is 213 Hoops. We are putting out pretty regular content on there, just for game coverage and all that sort of stuff. And then the
clarify
podcast
what's regular when you're on with me.
And then the podcast is the Lob the Jam, the pod, which I co-host with Lucas Han and Dr. Shap. And that's about everything. I am also on Blue Sky. If you want to find me on Blue Sky, I was put on some NBA follows list, and I've gained 200 follows in the past day and a half on Blue Sky. So if you're on Blue Sky, I'm there as well. I think it's the exact same handle, but I do not go on there much.
Damn, I need to get in on that Blue Sky. Blue Sky Kai Jones. Guys are blue. Everything's in our favor. Everything's fine, guys. It's going to be all right. All right. Love you all, but especially love Robert Flom. He is my favorite. I've been listening to him forever. He was the first to come on this show when we started doing shows on video. And my friend, I appreciate you doing this. And whenever you do get out here for Intuit Dome, we'll have a nice dinner that night. How about that?
I appreciate it as always. Thanks for having me on, and I will let you know.
All right, guys. This has been another edition of Clippers Talk Live. For Robert Flom, I'm Adam Moslin.